kind of become rec centers for the town.
Correct.
And so just so that I understand, the district and your security team provides on-site security at night until the last person leaves for, let's say that's an over 40 men's rec basketball league. You have people at the schools during those times?
Mostly till 8 o'clock at night. Sometimes events go later and security leaves. Again, the security component in the evening time is more for the vandalism, theft aspect of things, and not for the personal security.
Okay. And just one other question. One of the things that we're working on in the policy was timing. We talked about communication, and earlier I think you said, let's see if I can find it here. You want to make sure that you get timely messages out that are accurate, and you give a time frame for when further information will be given. In your experience, is it the quicker the information, the timely and accurate information gets out, the better, just because of the use of technology? That seems to be, I think, amongst the policy subcommittee and our colleagues, there's a lot of discussion and difference in opinion, I think, on when a message should be released. Should it be when the situation is under control, which could be an hour or 2 hours, or do we have a responsibility to, like you said, our stakeholders to put something out sooner? Can you address that?
Here's how I would say, and I'll give you something that happened in Newtown about 6 months ago, and then we ended up changing how we handled bus accidents with students on board. So there was a school bus picking up at the end of a cul-de-sac, and the school bus actually backed up into the construction vehicle, a backup. When the incident first happened, the school district put out a construction vehicle, hit the school bus, and all kids are okay, and trying to beat the message out. Some parents were already responding to the scene. The problem with that was the Newtown Police Department hadn't even gotten to the scene yet. Our school buses all have two-way radios. So here you had the superintendent get information from the bus company that was not factual. So she had to step it back in a subsequent broadcast. I don't know what you use here. We use School Messenger. It's called School Messenger. So I think the answer to your question is, if the school building related or something that's not law enforcement related, you pretty much can get the message out quick, because you're going to rely on your building administration to give you the facts. And that's what you want. You don't want to get too much in the weeds with particulars, but enough information so that parents know their kids are safe and that something's being done. If it's a matter involving the school, but it has a law enforcement or fire department component, you need to have a school PIO, whoever that's going to be, public information officer, whether it's a superintendent or assistant superintendent. But before you put out any information, you need to talk to the police department to make sure that, because they're the incident command, that what the information you're putting out is correct and accurate. Again, you're just not going to beat the kids with the devices initially.
Just to piggyback on that, again, we're looking to put that in policy, but from just listening to what you're saying, it probably really resides down into protocol or procedural, not so much policy, as far as the time, if you want to make the time.
Correct. You use the word reasonable amount of time. I really wouldn't want to see you lock yourself in if you're saying within 20 minutes we're going to have a policy. Within 20 minutes you're going to have all the information you need, because there's a lot of variables.
Another follow-up question. As far as how you're paid through the school district, I take it?
How security is paid?
Yes.
Yeah, and I'll tell a story again, but it's okay, so I was telling Aaron. There were actually 2 two towns in Newtown that were ahead of us in going armed. Enfield, Connecticut, up on the Massachusetts line, and North Branford, down near the shoreline. We went out, we, the superintendent of schools in Newtown, the first select woman, board of ed members, we visited both of these school districts to see, we knew we wanted to go armed, but to kind of see how we wanted to do this. Two totally different programs. In North Branford, the superintendent wanted to retain control over the program. Just to backtrack, Connecticut, right after the tragedy, passed a law that said school districts could employ armed security in the schools. Retired law enforcement, 15 years minimum on the job, left in good standing. So the law was there to do it. Again, in North Branford, the superintendent wanted to remain controlled. They were board of ed members. They were concealed carry. They still are concealed carry. They wore these nice vests. It was very soft. Enfield, on the other hand, was guys in black jumpsuits with exposed gun belt, exposed weapon, who worked for the police department and the town. We took a little bit from both places. We liked the North Branford model. It was much softer, concealed carry, the non-militaristic approach to it. But we initially took the Enfield portion where the police officers were town employees and they were supervised and paid for by the police department. But I was their day-to-day liaison, so it was kind of a strange setup, but it worked. As a couple of years progressed, the officers wanted more and more benefits and more money, and it got to the point where the first selectwoman threw up her hands and told the superintendent, if you want to continue in our program, you're going to have to become board of ed employees, because we cannot fund it through the police department anymore. And so at the beginning of the 2017-2018 school year, the armed officers came over to the board of ed. So again, now I have 19 that are all board of ed members, work for me, and are paid and compensated through the board with medical benefits and time off and things like that, and overtime. That's another aspect. So the athletic director has security at the bigger sporting events, football and baseball and things like that. The officers are on a rotating basis, so I just kind of go down the name list, and when an overtime opportunity comes up, the unarmed would be a lot cheaper to deploy, but it just goes in order. So there's a significant cost to the program.
Mark, I have another question for you.
Sure.
Now you have 19 people working for you. They all have concealed weapons.
No, nine of them do.
9 of them. All right, so now, what happens, God forbid, something happens in one of the schools? Now, do you folks take control, or does the police department take control?
If there's an officer involved shooting, God forbid, in the school, the police department, in Connecticut, the state's attorney's office, or in Newtown, the state's attorney's office out of Danbury, would conduct an investigation no different than they would for a regular police officer. And we would, being with the board of ed, we would look at the administrative end of things.
What I'm more looking at is your folks are in the buildings.
Right.
An active shooter is in one of the buildings. It's locked, you locked it down.
Right.
Do the police in your town, come into the building? Or are you folks supposed to handle the whole thing?
The police respond. Just to backtrack, the police in Newtown all have master keys to our building, all have fob access to our building, can log into any camera from their police car, from the police station. They're going to respond, and Newtown land-wise is big. They generally have a 3 to 5 minute response time. But again, because we employ armed security, there's already a good guy with a gun on the campus.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Mark,
Okay.
Diana Campbell here. Thank you for coming. I have one quick question, follow-up and then my real question. And that is, you said you report to the Board of Ed. Do you directly report to the superintendent? Do you report to another, people personnel? Who do you report to in the hierarchy of the school district?
On a day-to-day basis, I report to the superintendent of schools.
And the 19 people report to you?
Correct. And we also in Newtown have a district safety and security committee that meets monthly. The superintendents, I co-chair it, and you won't believe this, but it works out well with the head of the teachers union in Newtown. And that's when after Sandy Hook happened, we had an interim superintendent who Dr. John Reed, who had been our superintendent years ago. And it was his brainchild that came up with this, and when he told me he's going to pair me up with the teachers union president, I was like, are you kidding me? But I will tell you that it works great, because Tom is a valuable asset. He's very pro-security, and if there's a teacher that doesn't want to go with the program of security, I defer to him, and he does whatever he does. He straightens them out.
Plus, he knows what's going on day to day in the classrooms and what works in terms of traffic in the between classes and before and after school and buses and all that.
Exactly. So we meet monthly. Also on the committee is the chief of police, a police lieutenant, a police captain. Also the headmasters and principals. There's 3 private schools in Newtown. They all play a part in the committee. There's a lot of stakeholders. Our first selectmen's on the committee. It's definitely a group effort, which I like, because I don't want to be coming up with all the security stuff on my own. It's definitely a collaborative effort. So nothing gets put into a plan or procedure or guideline or policy unless the district safety and security committee votes on it and okays it.
Thank you. So now for my real question. I'm concerned with communication, parents. Obviously, parents feel very struggling and have an emotional tie, and these are their children, and they can trust them when they put them on the bus to get there safely, stay safe, learn, come back safely. And we are basically the people who are in charge of making sure that those expectations are met. But we also do live in the age of cell phones. First graders have cell phones now, and something happens, even if it's just the way it's slamming the locker door, and the text goes home. And parents all know somebody who may be on the police department, used to be on the police department, may have known somebody in the, whatever. So given all of that scenario, it's easy to understand and see how communication from the instant of the first hop or whatever spreads like wildfire all the way, parents working in California, texting back to the grandmothers, all that stuff. So given all that, training to the expectations to the parents is important. And coming from a rural town, and Bristol's not that rural, but we've spread out, Bristol Warren. How do you get to those parents, or how does your committee get communication to those parents, especially those parents who they're not apathetic, they're busy, or they're not as involved in the schools as they can? So to me, it's the success of controlling that wildfire of communication that comes out from a single pop to getting the parents to say, okay, I know this is going to happen soon. How do you train or set up communication so that you reach those parents who are can potentially panic?
Through our PTA presidents. Our PTA Presidents Association, they're kind of the captain of their individual school. They have the PTAs. They have a newsletter. They have mailing lists. In Newtown, parents are very involved. I'll give you for instance. I don't know if you use a social media surfing app here to kind of try to see what kids are communicating. We were approached by a company a few years ago in Newtown. and to do a free demo on it, and we did, but I ran it by the PTA presidents. I had to get a lot of transparency, a lot of buy-off from parents. So I met personally with the PTA presidents, like I do every year, and they put this out to their memberships, their parents, and we tried this social media app, and it really, I don't know if anybody saw the New York Times article last week, it really didn't work for us, and we canceled it. We don't use it anymore. But the whole thing is getting that parental buy-off, and the PTA presidents is probably our main conduit of how we get the messaging out. The central office, our superintendent, does put out a quarterly newsletter, but the communications from the PTA presidents and from the individual school principals is much more frequent.
Thank you, Mark. I think following up on some of the same communication and some expectations appropriately within the community, how do you draw, well, I guess, how do you actually end up communicating what parents and others in the community can expect in terms of the level or frequency of communication that they're going to get? If it's not also, if you don't also feel comfortable having it be something that's part of a policy. So how do you draw that balance between saying you can expect to hear from us on this and get information or whatever, without having them, without having something, in writing that they can share and actually, refer to?
If the school district or individual school in Newtown enacts one of our emergency procedures, Aaron has the scripts. I share the scripts. The superintendent has pre-worded messaging all ready to go that explains to the parent. The first words are always all children are safe, and that explains what the reasoning for what's going on. If there's a fight at Newtown High School in the cafeteria, that's not unless there's some aggravating circumstances surrounding it, that's not a messaging area. Car accidents going on all the time in the park, not at the high school, and something like that's not a messaging out to parents. But it's enacted when we actually put an emergency response guideline into place, into action.
Is the main concern about having things set forth in written policy as opposed to being a part of procedures one of potential liability if it's not followed, or is there something else about that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And are the procedures that you're talking about just written down and not shared as opposed to, or are they just internal procedures that people are aware of?
Again, the staff is trained, students know about them, they have access to them. I would gladly share with you our emergency operations plan, but it would have to be in an executive session, and you only used it for working on what you're working on. But the main points, like I mentioned before, about telling parents Newtown High School is in safe school mode, and this is what it means. That we put out, and again, that's not some state secret.
Shifting topics a little bit, with respect to the armed security officers, what type of, without getting into specifics, what type of training, or are they getting additional training around carrying weapons in schools and appropriate protections around that and procedures for use or expectations?
They attend 3 days of training in the summer. 1 day's at the Connecticut Post Academy in Meriden, and then they do a day at the range, and then they do another day of active shooter type scenarios in one of our school buildings. So they do this 3-day training in August, right before the school year starts this year.
Everybody does it every year?
Yes.
And also then shifting topics again, you're talking about the incident command and control, I think,
Right.
and how when an incident occurs, then you're the person who's in charge of incident command and control. I'm curious, just for our own information purposes, what does the process look like for determining whether something rises to the level of an incident that might prompt those procedures?
Okay, let me give an example because I use this for training for our school administrators. So, let's say Monday morning your office secretary receives a phone call from somebody saying, I planted a bomb outside your school, it's due to go off in an hour, I'm doing it because my taxes are too high and I'm tired of paying for the schools and this is for real. Okay, that in and of itself, that threat is a crime. So going by the steps, I'm just kind of, I think you want me to get into the incident command a little bit, is the first thing that school secretary take that call would do is we have a cheater that they keep by their phones because especially after 12-14, we get all kinds of crank calls from all over the world. And they have like a checklist and they fill out notes with that. In our procedures for handling that, they alert another staff member who alerts the principal who calls me. If I happen to be at the school where this happens, I'm the incident commander. It's a police action. So let's go back to, I'm at the school, I report to the school, I'm in that school, and this is what we have. We had a threatening phone call. At that time, I'm the incident commander. I would put out protocols such as scan, which is staff look out the rooms and look for something strange, and put our procedures in place to respond to that type of thing. The police department would be en route to the call. And once the police department got there, the first responding officer becomes the incident commander for the overall incident because it is criminal in nature. And I resort back to being the incident commander for the schools. But because it's a school-related issue, the public information being released would go through our superintendent, the PIO, and the school level.
So thank you for that, and I think slightly different approach to the question that I was asking. In circumstances, well, I guess, are there any gray areas between something that would prompt incident command control and something that wouldn't, something that's not as minor as a fender bender in the parking lot, not as major as somebody calling in a bomb threat, but something that's like maybe, I don't have an example off the top of my head, but something that it isn't 100% clear cut. Is there, I guess, on that like checklist that people have around taking notes on things, is there like a paint by numbers, you know whether or not something is incident or not, or is there somebody that has discretion in how you train people to use that discretion?
We look at it this way, is no matter whether the incident's criminal in nature or it's fire-related or security-related, there is a hierarchy of structure. And whether somebody's always in charge, so that teacher moving in to break up a fight between two students would be an incident commander, so to speak. But when you get to the part of the command with the messaging, in Newtown